Welcome to Locked On Leafs. Couple of things that we're going to chat about on today's podcast. We got an update from Auston Matthews. We also are going to go over some of the Olympians from the Maple Leafs ranks that will be debuting as the men's tournament gets underway tomorrow. And then we're going to play a little bit of cosign, no sign. It's going to be a fun show. Can't wait. Let's get into it. It's Locked On Leafs.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm your host, Mike DiStefano from TSN 1050 Toronto Radio, and as my co-host now. And remember, if you missed yesterday's show, we debuted the new co-host of the show, and it is Dave Morassutti from Sportsnet, also from a writer with the NHLPA. You can follow myself on Twitter at @MakeItAScore_Canuck. You can follow Dave at D_Morassutti. And just a reminder that you can follow the show at Locked On Leafs on Twitter. And now Locked On Leafs can be found on YouTube as well. The video portion of these podcasts are going to be put up on YouTube each and every day, Monday to Friday. You can find the audio versions wherever you get your podcasts from. Leave a rating and review as well. That would be much appreciated. Coming up on today's show, we're going to be talking about Auston Matthews' status after leaving Monday night's game with the head injury. We got an update from Sheldon Keefe at practice, so we'll tell you all about that. And then also going to have a discussion about what's going to happen with the goaltenders, the tandem going forward, who we think is probably going to end up handling a larger portion of the load going down here the stretch. And we're going to look into some of the Leafs prospects as well who are going to be at the Olympics and play a little bit of cosign, no sign. So it's a fun show, Dave. Let's get right into it. And obviously, I think everybody wants to know what's going on with Auston Matthews. We got an update from Sheldon Keefe today at practice. He said Matthews reportedly felt pretty good today, might be able to practice tomorrow, and no indication on his status Thursday in Calgary. He had a scheduled day off as is, which is why he wasn't on the ice tonight, but might be able to go tomorrow. And I did, if that is the case, and you know, we don't have any injury here for Auston Matthews, it didn't look good, that's for sure. Leafs looks like they may have dodged a bullet here.
Oh, a massive bullet. I mean, it didn't look good. You know that head injuries can be a little wonky in that he could be good one day, the next day not so good. So I know Sheldon Keefe doesn't want to say, "Oh, he looks good. He's going to be back on the ice tomorrow," because really things could change so easily. But I think it's a good sign that a day after he wasn't too bad. And I mean, we'll see on Wednesday if he's on the ice. That's pretty much a good sign that he'll be good to go, and that's crucial because they're going to be going out west, going on the road, playing the next 3 games. So you don't want to be having Auston Matthews sitting out when you're going on a tough road trip like that.
Yeah, and Calgary is a pretty solid squad. So I mean, you're going to want to have your best guys out there to play, and Auston Matthews, the best of the bunch, one of the best in the world, top 3 player in the NHL in my estimation. But another guy who might actually be able to give this team some reinforcements, Jake Muzzin, practice again today and apparently is trending toward playing on Thursday. So Jake Muzzin, who's been out with a concussion, the same kind of thing that we thought might be an issue with Matthews. Looks like it might not be, but he's been out for the last few weeks. They're being really, really cautious, and they didn't play him in yesterday's game the other night against Carolina, but it looks like he should be good to go come the game against Calgary on Thursday. So you bring Jake Muzzin back into the lineup. I think we all know what he brings because there's something that this team lacks when he's not there. But I'll say this, Dave. Outside of that game against the Rangers, which we all know was just brutal, just piss poor effort all around, and it was the first game without Jake Muzzin, I thought that Rasmus Sandin has actually filled in quite admirably up in the top 4 once he got going and got a little bit more comfortable in that role.
Yeah, and in fairness to the Leafs, like the Rangers are a brutal team to go against. Like that's a tough team to go against. And you know what? Like these young defensemen, they have to learn through these experiences. Like, you go through a bad one like that, you're most likely gonna see them bounce back because That's what you expect from them, right? These guys are trying to feel their way through. They're used to playing in a certain role, and things get swapped on them. It's going to take time for them to adjust. But yeah, I mean, we all know Rasmus Sandin saved the Leafs bacon against the Hurricanes. So, like, those are positive signs. I know people aren't totally sold on him just yet, but those are things you need to see, especially from defensemen. It's a lot tougher for defensemen to really establish themselves. If you ask a lot of people who analyze defensemen in the NHL, they say it's like the first 300 games is their feeling out process. Once they reach 300 games, that's where you can kind of decide where their careers kind of the trajectory they're going on. And both Rasmus Sandin and even Timothy Liljegren, it is way too early to say for sure where they're going. So yeah, it was tough without Muzzin, but I thought they did pretty well. It could have been worse.
Well, they've won 6 in a row, right? Like, since that game, they've come back and they've won 6 in a row. So they went 6 for 6 out of 7 games without Jake Muzzin. Not to say that they don't need him, because I think they do.
I was
He's
going
a
to say,
massive part of this team. Not what I'm saying at all. Let's not pull the cart ahead of the horse. But it's nice to see that if injuries do show up in the playoffs, and we've seen time after time, I think I've said on this podcast multiple times, but I want to say it was Tyler Toffoli this summer who publicly said the second Jake Muzzin went out in Game 6 against the Habs last year, they knew they were going to win that series. They knew they were going to win that when Jake Muzzin went out in Game 6. So they had to finish Game 6, which they had confidence they were going to win, and then knew they were going to win Game 7 without that guy on the ice. So clearly he is somebody who means a lot to this team, a lot to this core, to this D-core. And he hasn't been as good this season as he has in the past. But I wonder if, getting a little bit of a mid-season break here with this injury, perhaps he'll recharge his body, and it'll be good to go in the second half for a big time finish. One of the other conversations that we wanted to have here before we kind of get into this conversation about the Olympians that have some Maple Leafs ties is we want to discuss what's going on with the goaltending position here. And it's not that there's a controversy at all, but, I think about maybe a month ago, like my grasp on the situation has changed a little bit, where a month ago I was ready to hand the keys to Jack Campbell. You're the starter. Mrazek, if this means that, you're a $3.8 million backup who only gets to play, once every couple of weeks, every 5-6 games or so, or on the night 2 of it back-to-back, so be it. Jack's totally earned it, and he's the way that he's playing, he deserves to be the guy. Fast forward to now, it seems like Mrazek has been the hotter of the 2 goaltenders in the last month. He's rolling on a 4-game win streak, played well against a top-tier team in the Carolina Hurricanes last night. Do you think that there's any sense of, not, like I said, I don't want to call it a controversy because it's a good problem to have 2 good goalies, but do you think that Mrazek may start to steal some starts away from Jack Campbell?
I think it wouldn't be the worst thing if he does, because yeah, you definitely want to have some established number 1 guy, especially around playoff time. But we've seen Jack Campbell need almost like a mental reset. And the best way you can give a goalie a mental reset is knowing you have someone that can back him up, because it does take pressure off of a guy like Campbell to know that, okay, if he stumbles, Mrazek can pick up the slack a little bit, right? So I think that was something that Fredrik Andersen really never had in Toronto, and I think that means a lot for a team like the Leafs that desperately need goaltending when playoff time comes around, because it ain't going to be easy whatever road they take, and you're going to need. Now, obviously, I don't like the idea of which goalie will go in the playoffs. Like, which one are you going to go with? You kind of want to go have someone established, but to know that both guys are ready in that scenario, I think if you're the Leafs, you're going to take that over what you've had in the past, where it's like it's ready or nothing, like we've seen.
Yeah, I agree. So it's not a bad problem to have, but I think that there's going to be more of a traditional tandem the rest of the way, like we originally thought we were going to get early on in the season before Peter Mrazek went down to injury. And I think now, especially since he's rolling, I think it was after the game on Monday against the Hurricanes where Sheldon Keefe came out and said, like, this guy is building momentum, and you don't want to kill that momentum by having him sit out for a week or two while you give the net to Jack Campbell. I think we're going to see these guys playing pretty often, and look, they're playing every other night basically for the rest of the month once we get through this week. So it's going to be a really tight schedule and a condensed schedule the rest of the way. I wouldn't be shocked to see a 50-50 split in a way down the stretch with both Petr Mrazek and Jack Campbell, and maybe it is a situation where it's a hot hand gets the net type of thing where we could see Mrazek get 3 starts in a row, and then you see Campbell get 3 or 4 starts in a row. We'll see how it all shakes out. It's definitely something that we're going to be monitoring as we go throughout the rest of the season. There's some breaking news here, Dave, that we got to get to, and we're going to do it on the other side, but a former Maple Leafs goaltender is hanging him up. It may not be the guy you're thinking, but we'll tell you about that next. But first, why don't we hear a word from our show sponsor, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about our friends at Built Bar. Have you ever had a protein bar, Mike? Are you a big protein bar guy?
I've got a bunch of Built Bars so you're new, but
Yeah.
you're going to end up getting these Built Bars. Just they're going to give them to you and say, "Hey, try these out because you're going to love them," and you're going to love them, dude. They are outstanding, outstanding products.
See, the thing about, I was a big, protein bar guy because, during the day, you don't want to have a big meal, or even at nighttime, you want to avoid the snacking. So I usually get a protein bar, but those things used to be so heavy. So yeah, I'm new to this. I frankly, I don't know a lot about Built Bar. So our lovely friends there gave us some statistics about Built Bar, and I thought it was pretty interesting. 130 calories per bar, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Like, that's pretty incredible for an energy bar, for a protein bar. So, and the flavors. Which flavor is your favorite? Because I gotta ask you.
Peanut butter brownie.
Oh,
Peanut butter brownie. It is fantastic. Dude, these things taste just like candy bars. It's ridiculous that they're healthy for you. The fact that they taste so good and are healthy for you is actually insane to
it's a
me.
dream. It's a dream. And
It
and
is.
I saw there's a caramel macchiato flavor. If I get the chance, I'm gonna order some. Because guess what? Built Bar's got an offer for you. So if you go to builtbar.com, use the promo code LOCKED15, you get 15% off your order. So use the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at builtbar.com. We'll have all that in the description because guess what? Built Bar, different than any other protein bar or candy bar you'll find on the market. So I'm gonna enjoy myself a Built Bar when I get those in. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, you will, man. They are fantastic. Use the promo code LOCK15 at builtbar.com. All right, let's get back into this here because um, the men's Olympics is about to start off. The women's looks like they've finished up their round robin, the preliminaries, and Canada finishing atop of the table after a nice 4-2 win over the Americans yesterday. They're going to take on Sweden on Friday. So the women's side, they've already kind of got the first half of their tournament underway, and the playoffs for them start on Friday. But starting tomorrow night, the Canadian men's Olympic team will drop the puck tomorrow. So really excited to see that when they're playing Germany. So we thought, let's power rank these Leaf Olympians based on our excitement level to watch them. So maybe not necessarily on skill, but how excited we are to watch them. Because at this point, because there's no NHLers, I think the main draw for me is to watch these Leafs prospects and some of the other top tier prospects around the NHL. But we're going to focus, since it is Locked On Leafs, we're going to focus on the Leafs ones here. Once again, I'm Mike DiStefano, the host of the show, alongside my co-host Dave Morassutti. So let's power rank the Leafs Olympians based on excitement level. So why don't you kick it off? Let's go. There's 4 of them. So you have Matthew Nyes, Nick Abrazazy, Pontus Holmberg, and then we decided to include Josh Ho-Sang. I think Josh Ho-Sang counts as a Maple Leaf product, considering that he spent the whole season with the Marlies and has ties to this organization. So we have 4 guys. We're going to power rank them 4 through 1. Why don't you start first? Go ahead. Start with your 4th, all the way to the guy you're most excited about.
All right. Well, 4th, just because I haven't heard too much about him, but I've heard some, but not the most intriguing just because of where he's playing right now. Pontus Holmberg, a Swedish prospect. Those guys tend to take a little bit longer to come here. So, like, I'll be interested in when Sweden's playing. I'll have my eye on him. Smallish. I hate to really say it because almost every Leafs prospect's like this, a smallish
I know.
forward, but a guy that I've heard the Swedish players on the team say has a good two-way instincts. I probably you probably maybe expect him to come to North America next year with the Marlies. So I'm interested to see, for a guy that's small, does he bring the other elements to his game so that won't be a problem when he comes to North America?
Yeah, for I have Holmberg as my fourth guy as well, and just looking at, there's a great article out there if you want to read a little bit more about these guys in the Athletic by Joshua Cloak, and he got some quotes from some of the Leafs brass, and Haley Wickenheiser had this to say about Pontus Holmberg, the Leafs' sixth-round draft pick from 2018. She said he's been able to have more success by playing in the interior. He's certainly used to his skating in a better fashion, and then he's been able to utilize players around him better. But I think the confidence of having that season last year in the playoffs and then jumping into this year, combined with the maturing also off the ice with his fitness and his strengths, has pushed him more. So, at that smallish frame, he's tacked on a couple more lbs. He's gotten a little bit stronger. She also says he's a very cerebral guy who can process the game well. So I'm excited to see what he can bring as well. But he is another guy who I also have as my fourth. So who's your third?
My third is going to be Nick Abrazazy. This is a guy that I've heard things about. A good prospect, but one that we're not sure when he's going to be coming, because he's another one that wants to finish things off in the NCAA with Harvard. I mean, you're going to Harvard, you kind of want to finish your degree there, or at least get most of that done, because it's a pretty prestigious school. But I've heard some good things about him. His instincts. He's a guy that likes to engage in physical play, has some high level IQ and vision. I'm just curious to know, is he a guy that's going to take more time just because he's played all those years in the NCAA? But it's really good competition there, but we really haven't seen much of him in this type of competition. So that's where I'm curious to see how he does against those players. But I feel like he's a bit more on the outside than the other guys they have there.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to have pretty well almost the same ranking here. There's only four guys. It's kind of the way that it's going to turn out. But I also had Nick Abrazazy as my third ranked guy that I'm excited to watch here at the Olympics for Team USA. He was a fourth round pick back in 2019. And like you said, currently playing at Harvard University. So he's a smart guy. Just a really, really smart dude. High hockey IQ. He's got really good skill. But again, the issue with him is more so his size, much like a lot of the prospects that have been brought in over the last couple of years by the Toronto Maple Leafs. But Abrazazy, he's someone who I'm excited to see because, playing in the college ranks, and now he's going to play against men. What does he look like against men, guys who play pro hockey? It'll be a nice little taste as to what we can expect when he hopefully eventually signs with the Maple Leafs. And then I would imagine he's more of a Marlies type of guy to start his career. But this will be a nice little sneak peek to what we could see out of Abrazazy once he eventually does land in Toronto. But I got him at number 3 as well. Curious to see how your top 2 shake out here. So why don't we go straight maybe to number 1, since that there won't be any intrigue once you go off from number 2. So
This is like when we're at a pageant and you're doing the
right.
top three.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like there's no intrigue if we give you number 2. So why don't we hop right to number 1, and then we could go off and say your second one as well.
You know what? Maybe this surprises some people, but Matthew Nyes. I'm very interested in this player because he's a guy that was, first round grade for a lot of people, and the Leafs got him in the second round. Like, when we talk about the Leafs trading all their first round picks, well, they got to start getting some of that first round talent in later rounds. And I feel like Matthew Nyes has the tools to do that. I've you look at him, he's got the size that a lot of the Leafs prospects generally don't have. and he plays that physical style, which you like to see. But it also, he's not just a big guy that, is a physical player. He has other attributes that I think the Leafs do like. I mean, they wouldn't have made him a second round pick if he didn't. I know that he's probably, just like Abrazazy, he's going to be in NCAA for a little bit, but he's at a good program in Minnesota. He was supposed to play at the World Juniors. He was supposed to be a prominent player at the World Juniors.
Yep.
We didn't get.
He did score though in the one game that he played,
Yeah,
didn't he? Yeah, he did get a goal.
So we missed that chance. So now I'm like, we got to see him now, and we're gonna see him on the big ice surface, which, for a big guy, that could be a challenge. And I want to see how he does in that challenge. And
he's not a brutal skater though. That's the thing. Like he's not. Like he's a big dude, but he's not a brutal skater. This isn't Nick Ritchie 2.0 over here. Like he's not bad. And out of the University of Minnesota, he's also my top guy, to be quite honest with you. So we're on the same wavelength there, Dave. You and I both really excited to see Matt Nyes. The Leafs did not have a first round pick in this past draft, but took him with the second round, 57th overall. But a lot of people right after the draft said, you know what, he's kind of a first round talent and a sneaky guy who could end up being a real gem, a diamond in this draft. And early on, I know there's so much hockey to be played by all of these guys, but early on, he's looking like the steal of the draft coming late in the second round for the Maple Leafs. And you took a late look at his stats that he's had so far, a true freshman at the University of Minnesota, and he's got 25 points in 26 games, so almost a point per game as a freshman in Minnesota. So I really, really like this kid. 6'3", 210 pounds. He's a big boy, and why I like him is because I think that he can fit prominently in this team's top six at some point, or middle six at least, with this team. And he's got a little bit of, pizzazz. He can score. He likes to take the puck into the dirty areas. I like Matt Nyes a lot. I think it was a great draft pick, and I think he's going to be a fun player to watch for the Americans. I think he'll have a good opportunity, too, to kind of show off his skill, because there's a lot of college kids on the American squad. I think I saw they have 15 of them. And Abrazazy and Nyes, two of those. And I think Matthew Nyes is going to be someone who they're going to be anticipating a sizable role at the tournament here. And then that means that we both have Josh Ho-Sang at number 2. He's been playing really, really well with the Marlies and has had a solid season. I think that he's somebody who, when he gets back overseas from the Olympics, I wonder if teams start to sniff around on him. I wonder if the Maple Leafs decide to hand him out a deal to Ho-Sang. I know I did hear Kyle Dubas in his availability this weekend kind of talking about it and saying how, they need to either blank or get off the pot with him, essentially, because in order to use him on their playoff roster, if they want to use him in the playoffs, they're going to have him signed before the trade deadline. So, the Leafs are going to have to kind of make a decision on Josh Ho-Sang, I think, when he gets back, and based on how he plays for Team Canada, and I would expect a pretty prominent role for him. It's one of the big names alongside Eric Stahl for Canada. I'm quite excited to see what he can bring to the table. But look at that. We got the exact same ranking here. Matthew Nyes at 1, Josh Ho-Sang at 2, Nick Abrazazy at 3, Pontus Holmberg at 4, and of course, we got to throw in the honorable mention. Denis Malgin will be playing, named to Team Switzerland. So Denis Malgin is an honorable mention as a former Maple Leaf who's going to be there. And I got to toss that in because I still can't believe that they traded Mason Marchment for Denis Malgin. Speaking of bad trades, actually, Dave, this is a perfect segue. You thought that Denis Malgin for Mason Marchment was a bad trade? Do you remember a trade of goaltenders in mid-2000s? Yeah, you're going to put a towel over your face for those listening here. We have some breaking news here, ladies and gentlemen. Tuukka Rask, former Maple Leafs draft pick, Tuukka Rask announcing, it's being reported that he's getting set to retire. He was going to try and make a comeback, but according to Fluto Shinzawa of The Athletic, a Bruins beat reporter, Tuukka Rask probably going to end that comeback bid coming off of that injury that he had and off-season surgery. And it looks like he's just going to kind of call quits and retire. He tried. doesn't look like he's ready to come back. And so that's going to do it for Tuukka Rask, I guess, in the NHL. And just you'll always remember that Tuukka Rask was a Maple Leafs draft pick that never became the great for the Leafs and only killed them multiple times in the playoffs. 3-0 in against the Leafs in playoff series. 2013, the collapse, we all know, and then again in 17 and then 18. And Tuukka Rask, pretty good career. Stanley Cup champion back in 2010, 2011, two-time finalist, an Olympic bronze in 2014, won the Vezina that season as well. And we were just looking this up. His statistics against the Leafs in the regular season, 19-7-2, a 926 save percentage, and a 212 goals against average. I think he might have been pissed that he got traded.
See, that's the thing there. It's one thing for him to bring Boston so much good fortune, but to twist the knife and say, hey, team that traded me for a guy that, look, Andrew Raycroft won the Calder Trophy. I get it, but everyone knew what Tuukka Rask was the next one. And then on top of that, what also was the icing on the cake was Justin Pogey was
flamed out.
You know, Justin Pogey is at the Olympics right now.
I do actually. He's one of Canada's backups in case one of these goaltenders get injured. Yeah, he was one of on the taxi squad for Team Canada.
Yeah,
I guess we should throw out Justin Pogey's name as an honorable mention.
Yeah, I was about to actually when we were talking about Dennis Malgin, but honestly, between that trade, you know what? People will say the Phil Kessel trade was the worst trade the Leafs ever made. I said at least Phil Kessel did something when he was in Toronto. We got nothing. Like Andrew Raycroft was brutal, unfortunately. I know Andrew Raycroft is I feel bad for the guy. He was put in a tough situation, much like Phil Kessel was. But at least the good thing that came out of this, we're never going to trade with Boston again in these scenarios. I think that was the lesson there. But I just remember the misery from the 2010. I'll even say 2010 till Auston Matthews draft lottery, having to live with the fact. I mean, even though Tuukka Rask was a thorn in the side.
You can even now, up until last year, where the Leafs, I guess, finally had a decent. Well, Freddie Anderson, I guess you could say, up until Freddie came along. But even then, Tuukka outdueled Freddie in every single playoff series they played. They just haven't been able to find a goaltender as capable and as comparable to Tuukka. I mean, look,
the closest was James Reimer. If I'm being honest,
I mean, no, I would say closest would be Freddie Anderson.
Well,
what do you mean for draft?
Before Freddie, that the Leafs drafted, developed,
right? Okay, yeah,
brought in.
That's it, man. That's really it. He's the only goaltender that they've really been able to do that with. Maybe Joseph Woll could turn into something. I don't know, but yeah, absolutely. I think you'd be hard pressed to find a better Leafs goaltender that was drafted by the organization in the last couple of decades than Tuukka Rask. Before we get to cosign no sign, I want to tell you guys all about betonline.net. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. As football continues its march through the playoffs, right to the big game in a couple of weeks, betonline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just football. BetOnline has up-to-the-minute info on pro and college hoops, NHL, boxing, UFC, along with live real-time updates of current games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the new amazing offers available for the 2022 season. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. And there's if you had to bet, if you had to make a bet on, and this kind of goes in with my first cosign no sign, Dave, and yes, with me, Dave Morassutti, the new full-time co-host of Locked On Leafs. I'm Mike DiStefano, your other co-host of the show. Just a reminder, you can find the podcast now on YouTube, the video podcast, and wherever you get your podcast for audio. It's completely free, and you'll get new content coming out each day, Monday to Friday. And let's get to cosign, no sign. For those who haven't heard this game before, if you're new to the show, the way it's played, I'll make a statement, Dave will make a statement, and if we agree with it, we'll cosign it, explain why. If we disagree, we'll no sign it and explain why. And the question I'm going to ask you, and this goes with what we were chatting about just before we went to break there, and what I was getting to when I said, if you had to bet, Tuukka Rask is a Hall of Famer. Cosign, no sign.
Ooh, that's a good one. It's a lot tougher for goaltenders. It seems like the debate for goaltenders is a lot more rampant. Um, I'm gonna sign this one because of he had a really good career. Like I think pretty much the best. I don't know. I'm pretty sure best Finnish goaltender really to play. One of the, if not the, I think he's tops in all the Finnish goaltending
Yeah,
categories.
him. I would say too. Pekka may have something to say about that. I mean, those two are kind of neck and neck, I guess you
Yeah.
could say. Kipper had a decent career as a Finnish goalie, but yeah, definitely a top three all time.
Yeah, so I think there's a good case for Tuukka Rask. He may not have some of the accolades that other goaltenders, like the longevity, maybe he didn't have as other goaltenders, but I think just the period and the consistency. He won a Vesna. He had some success at the in the Olympics and internationally. That does help. So I'll
Three
sign it.
finals, made it to 3 Stanley
Yeah.
Cup finals, which means you won a lot of playoff games.
Exactly. Like no, he wasn't just a good uh regular season goaltender. He brought it in the playoffs in a tough market like Boston. Like I think those are things that people tend to overlook in my opinion.
Yeah. So you're co-signing that?
I'm going to co-sign.
All right. Man, we are running out of time here. We're only going to do 2 each. Okay. 2
Okay.
each.
That
So
works.
you go ahead and we'll go quick through these next couple.
All
What's your
right, co-sign no sign. Mitch Marner scores 30 goals for the first time in his career. He is at 16 currently.
cosign? Gonna
Okay.
co-sign it. He wasn't scoring a lot earlier in the year, and now he's scoring at a ridiculous pace. I think his shooting percentage over this 8-game goal scoring streak he's on is like 30%. And I don't know if you saw this, but there's the stat that he's the first guy since like 1997 to have an 8-game goal scoring streak. The first guy since Yager and Solani both did it in 97. No one's done it since. It's actually astounding. Like, that's almost our entire lives, you and I. It's crazy. And what he's doing is awesome. And I think the reason why I think he's gonna do it is because he's scoring a lot of these goals, like by going into the dirty areas and the way you're going to score. You look at both those goals last night, they're both by just going to the net, right? Go to the net, get a rebound. And that's how he was able to do it. And I think that he's going to keep doing that. He's got confidence, he's got swagger. Now he knows he's confidently shooting the puck. He's making an emphasis to shoot the puck as well. He's got some deception on his shot. I think this guy could be a legitimate 30 goal scorer in his sleep each and every year. If he can stay kind of hungry, if he can keep shooting at this pace, and then just at the end of the day, stay confident enough to do it. But I think 30 goals is easily achievable for Mitch Marner. Cosign.
And I'll say just a quick one. Career high 16.8% shooting percentage. When he scored 26 back in 2018-19, his shooting percentage was 11.16. So those numbers do definitely favor him reaching 30 goals.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. All right. So my second one for you. Let's go with this one. The Maple Leafs will win the Atlantic Division.
I'm going to no sign. The reason why I'm
No,
going to no sign,
they're only 1/100th away in points percentage. You know that, right? As we sit
I,
here right now, they're 1/100th back of Florida for top spot in the Atlantic. You're gonna no sign this?
the reason why I'm going to no sign is I think they're going to overtake Tampa because I think Tampa's kind of slipped a little bit. I mean, Tampa can go on a run just like any team. But Florida, I don't know if I'm totally in as Florida as like Stanley Cup contender, but that team top to bottom, they get guys producing. You just brought up Mason Marchment. Guy had 6 points in the game. Carter Verhaeghe last year was like outstanding for them. Like they find ways to
A
get
good year this year too, though. Like
yeah
Sam Bennett's having a terrific season.
Reinhardt.
Just had a 6-point game. They got this young kid, Anton Lundell, sneaky bet over at betonline.net. Definitely someone who can sprinkle a little bit on the Calder bet, by the way. They're having a great season, and they may even add at the deadline. As crazy it is to say, apparently they're in on like guys like Jacob Chikrin. And if you add to that blue line that gets even better to go along all that scoring, they have almost like 200 goals this season. It's madness. And yeah,
That's
I'm
why I just can't bet against Florida because they're doing
yeah,
everything right with like they're scoring a lot. Like if the Leafs go up against them, I think they're going to outscore them. That's going to be a tough one because they might not have the Auston Matthews like goal scorers, but they got the depth top to bottom in that lineup, and their goaltending. You know what? There's been question marks with Bobrovsky, but him and Spencer Knight have proven to be a pretty good duo.
yeah, yeah. I hate that I might have to agree with that. But I'm gonna no sign it. I think Toronto might actually do it. I think they could. I really think that they could do it. I think they'll win the division. I'm gonna go out on a limb here, not being a homer at all, not being good cop. I'm gonna co-sign it. All right, what's your last one? We gotta get through this quick.
All right, my last one here is one of Timothy Liljegren or Rasmus Sandin get traded at the trade deadline.
Ooh, that's a good one. Sandin, I will no sign for sure. I don't think they want to move on from Sandin. The only player who I could see them like who's out there as a possible trade would be maybe Chikrin because he has term and that might be worth using. But I don't know if I'm willing to go there myself. I don't even know if I see Chikrin as like the right fit for this club. Well, he would be, but I think they're somebody who could play the right would be better suited with this team. But that said, Liljegren could be used as bait to dangle to try and make that upgrade on the right side. And if they go out and they get a player to play the right, that shifts Justin Hall down. So you may not even need a Timothy Liljegren. So I'm like a 50-50 on that one because I think there's a chance. But this is a both. Do we have to say both? Like one of?
No, you can. It's one of.
Wow. I'm gonna no sign it. I'm gonna no sign it. They're both RFAs though. This offseason, they're gonna have to get paid. I mean, they're probably not gonna get paid a lot, but it is something worth noting. I'm gonna no sign it though. If they do move on from a defenseman, I think it'll be somebody with a little bit more cap on it, whether that's a Justin Hall or a Travis Dermott. One of those two, I think, will probably be included in some sort of deal. And I don't know if they give up on the young kids, Sandin and Liljegren. So I'm gonna no sign it. But boy, it's a good question. It's a good question, especially the Liljegren one. I think Liljegren's far more likely than Sandin. I think Sandin's not untouchable, but you'd have to really be getting a quality defenseman back to part with Sandin.
Yeah, because the only reason why I brought this because I found it interesting that Dubas said that they're really going to look at Sandin and Liljegren. Like they're going to give them both a run because I think it's an audition for them to see are these guys that they're going to invest because I think they both need contracts at the
Yeah.
end of the year. So like this is an investment that the Leafs are going to have to make, and they got to know for sure. And we're in that that month period where they got to make a decision. So that's the reason why I brought it up. I'm not totally on the fence that they're both going to get traded. I do think if the right
No,
deal,
I think it's a 0% chance both get traded.
oh, it's
That's a 0%.
100%. But if one getting traded, I think it's a 50-50. So
No, I don't even say 50-50. I mean,
you think it's like a more like a 20? I know you do Jerry's
I think,
percentages.
yeah,
What would Jerry say? 10%?
I think there's probably a 75% chance they're both on the roster past the deadline. Yeah,
I think that's fair.
maybe even an 80% chance.
Okay, I can live with that.
All right, Dave, I think we're going to have to leave it there. So that's going to do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting today's show. You could subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all podcasting platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti. And follow the show at Locked On Leafs. And a reminder that we are now on YouTube as well. So go check out the YouTube page, Locked On Leafs on YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Wherever you want to do it, that would be fantastic. Dave, was a pleasure to chat as always, and we'll be back tomorrow. Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.